Which 3 unrelated movies would make the greatest trilogy? Taken 3. The Grey. Batman Begins. Liam Neeson's wife dies. He contemplates death in the frozen wilderness and emerges a new man. And starts a secret society of ninjas. Drive. Collateral and Nightcrawler. I believe it's called the Yellow Light Trilogy. Life. Venom and A Quiet Place. Titanic. The Great Gatsby and Inception. It's a story of how Jack got into the Titanic, survived its crash, and moved to New York to become a billionaire. He then changed his name to Jay Gatsby, only for it to turn out to be a dream that Leo's character has in Inception, thus tying them up together. Good Morning Vietnam. Good Will Hunting. The Martian. Robin Williams. A radio jockey in the U.S. Army gets sent to Vietnam where he gains even more notoriety for his antics. After a bit of trouble, he is forced to leave the country. He later ends up doing another tour as a regular soldier in a different part of the conflict. Before being discharged, he moves back to Boston, uses the GI Bill to finish his education, meets the love of his life and spends his years with her until she tragically passes away from cancer. He continues to teach psychology courses at a local college until one day one of his old roommates, now a brilliant mathematician and professor at MIT, walks into his classroom. His roommate discovered a young, brilliant kid in Matt Damon. But while a genius, the kid is also severely troubled and no other therapist has been able to get through to him. Robin Williams takes on the case and connects with this young man, helping both of them heal. After him and Robin part ways, Matt decides to give love a chance and follows his heart to Florida. He picks up a love for botany along the way. His brilliant mind, background in math and unique specialization makes him an ideal candidate for NASA. After a few years of training, he joins one of the crewed missions to Mars where unfortunately, things go wrong for a bit. Luckily, being the scrappy genius that he is, he decides he's not going down without a fight. He just needs to survive long enough for a rescue mission to reach him. Tension and hilarity ensues throughout. Thought of doing the Bourne Identity initially but figured Will was so anti-government in the movie he actively chewed out the Homeland Security guy. He'd never join the Gladstone program. Bonus. That mathematician from Good Will Hunting later on branches out into theoretical physics and finds out that Norse gods are in fact real. Edited for spoilers. Above Average Joe nailed it with plot. But you could also base it on titles. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Kill Bill Ted. The Women. 28 Days Later. There Will Be Blood. Hurt Locker. Bourne Legacy. Avengers. Jeremy Renner as Army Intelligence turned Ranger turned EOD disposal. His experiences in Iraq traumatize him. His skill set plus broken psyche make him a perfect candidate for Treadstone. Treadstone brainwashes Jeremy Renner and turns him into a super soldier. His expanded skill set, lack of identity, and super soldier status makes him a perfect candidate for S.H.I.E.L.D. Fury recruits Jeremy Renner, codenames him Hawkeye, and boom, you have a trilogy. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Point Break. John Wick. Ted gets sent to military boarding school, becomes a cop, gives up being a cop and becomes an assassin. Office Space, Fight Club, and The Matrix. Not a trilogy so much as a triad. 3 retellings of the same story. Don't believe me? Disenfranchised. Loner office drone suffering under the boot heel of a soulless, anonymous, and dehumanizing system has a life-changing encounter with someone who opens his eyes to the artifice of the system he's trapped in and pulls the curtain back. As a result, the protagonist is no longer bounded by the rules of the system and becomes able to manipulate and bend it to his own ends, gaining power and authority in the process and fighting back against the dark, inhuman forces that seek to perpetuate the status quo. Ultimately, he's able to take down a fundamental component of the system and truly exist as a free man. They're the holy trinity of 1999 that perfectly encapsulate the zeitgeist of that era. The Sandlot. The Goonies. Airheads. Not my joke. But I like it. Red Dawn plus Blue Thunder equals Purple Rain. Frankenweenie. Corpse Bride. The Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm gonna slightly bend the rules and make the first one a TV show. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Independence Day. And Men in Black. Will Smith's mom gets scared and tells him he's moving in with his aunt and uncle in the Bel-Air neighborhood of Los Angeles. Will builds a life for himself there that gets violently interrupted when aliens arrive in July 1996 and obliterate Los Angeles. He teams up with Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman to defeat them. Realizing that humanity needs to be defended from aliens, Will moves back east and joins the Men in Black to help defend Earth from the scum of the universe. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Home Alone, Saw, Primer, Back to the Future, Terminator, Shutter Island, Inception, Revolutionary Road. Leonardo DiCaprio struggles to manage dreams and reality with marital problems. Probably the first two would make a good duo. Matilda, Carrie, Saint Maud, Top Gun Kiss Kiss Bang Bang Batman Forever. Val Kilmer is the second best fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force Navy. After a few years of service following his graduation from Top Gun, he is discharged with honors. He finally admits what everyone watching all those shirtless beach volleyball games already suspected. That he embraces his sexuality and moves to Miami, where he eventually becomes a private investigator. After getting wrapped up in a murder case with Robert Downey Jr., he becomes frustrated with the ineptitude of the police. He moves back to his home in Gotham to continue his work as a detective, dealing out vigilante justice until he decides to shed his old alias of Perry and dons a new identity. The Batman, Lord of the Rings, The Ring, Sonic the Hedgehog, Ghost, Casper the Friendly Ghost, Poltergeist. You get all aspects of a ghost in one night. The Prestige. Logan the Fountain. Hugh Jackman is a magician in the early 20th century who has lived hundreds of lives thanks to Tesla's duplication machine. After the final duplication, he realizes that he has essentially achieved immortality and lives his life as the nomad Wolverine, Logan, until he eventually meets his end defending the group of young mutants. As he lays dying, he reflects back on his life and one true love, from the Spanish Inquisition through modern times, and his final vision is the road to awe that transports him through the heavens towards Xibalba, where their souls are united for eternity. Big Trouble in Little China. The Thing. Escape from New York. Kurt Russell plays a truck driver who finds himself pulled into a whole mess involving gangs, kidnapping and ancient magic. After the ordeal, he joins a mission to the Antarctic to get away from his trauma. He learns how to survive and fight the Thing. His fighting skills improve and his personality hardens from the compounded traumas. While he's away, New York gets walled off and turned into a prison, which was built to house everybody who went crazy with paranoia after the incident in the Antarctic. The U.S. president gets taken into the city by force and only one person is tough enough to get him out. Van Helsing, Cabin in the Woods, Cloverfield, The Goonies. Lord of the Rings Trilogy. 51st Dates. A bunch of kids, led by the nice guy Mikey Walsh, are on a quest to save their house from the greedy bank. They are finding a pirate treasure and realize that part of that treasure is the One Ring. Two are sent out to destroy the ring to save the word. Mikey refuses to carry the ring but will do everything to help his best friend. After a lot of struggles they are successful. But Mikey changed. He wants to be called Doug now. Is living with his dad and his sister on Hawaii. Lucy has a severe anterograde amnesia and Mickey, now Doug, is, since he passed puberty, some sort of lovely E.T. knocked up the 40-year-old virgin. Contagion, World War Z, Resident Evil Extinction, Forrest Gump, Catch Me If You Can. Cast Away. Tom Hanks is a 75 IQ boy who gets entangled in every single major event in U.S. history in the 20th century. He then becomes a cop, chases some guy, and after all that becomes a FedEx man who gets stuck in an island. Not the point of your question since it's already a trilogy. The Cornetto Trilogy. All are fairly unrelated. Weird idea. But E.T., The Matrix, The Empire Strikes Back, Electric Dreams, Short Circuit. WALL-E. AI falls in love with a human musician. Ends up being jealously destroyed. Circuits are taken from the junk and turned into Johnny 5. Johnny's programming makes him break from being a war bot and ends up making friends with humans and loving their culture. His programming ends up everywhere and finally lets WALL-E find love. The Princess Diaries, Quantum of Solace, The Lion in Winter, Katharine Hepburn's crazy life story, Point Break, Bad Boys 2, Hot Fuzz, Titanic. Jack Dawson survives and ends up in New York. Gangs of New York. Jack takes on the new name Amsterdam and joins a gang to embarks on a fight for personal survival in 1860s New York. Shutter Island. After suffering a series of personal tragedies, Amsterdam finally becomes a delusional murderous psychopath.